trip sitter, your ego is not the priority. Like that's save that for basically any other time. But this process, it's about taking the trip sitter, the guide's ego, and setting that aside, allowing the journeyer to express, to let it out, to process, to let go, maybe even to get a big ego. And that's one thing psychedelics absolutely can do. It can actually cause a counter reaction for the ego to like get even more prominent. And that's okay. Sometimes we got to do that. So, if the trip sitter's in there and they've got all these opinions and they've got all these identity things about their identity that they cling to that maybe make them certain things make them uncomfortable, or they're not open-minded to certain things. All of a sudden, the journey becomes less about the journeyer and more about the trip sitter. So the ego is that thing that it wants to matter. Like that's the whole point of the ego. It's like, I just want to exist. I want people to know that I'm here and that I'm important. I'm special. But for this role, that's really not the thing to do. So the other kind of big element to this, and we'll cover this a little bit more later, but if there is an intervention, if there is something the trip sitter, the guide, is going to do to change the course of the journey, maybe they suggest, come to a different room, or maybe go lay on the couch, or maybe stand up, or you want to talk about something. I mean, it could be anything. Agreeing on this stuff beforehand is super critical, because when you're on psychedelics, you're very impressionable. You could be asked to do all kinds of weird things maybe you wouldn't normally do. And so it's really important to have these consensual agreements before the journey. And again, I've got a whole checklist of stuff to go over too. So, one more thing about that though. Having a little space for yourself. If you're the journeyer, the trip sitter shouldn't necessarily have to be like eyes on you the whole time. I get a lot of clients. They tell me, look, I've never done this before, and I just want to have somebody there, just in case. A lot of people ask about that. And for a trip sitter, if they've got a big ego about themselves and like, I'm going to change this person's life, I'm going to show them all kinds of new things they can do and think about. That journeyer is going to feel very just like this is too much. What's happening? The trip sitter has to be okay with potentially not doing anything. Like honestly, some people are paying for this too. I get people who'll pay a few $100 just to have someone in the room doing nothing. And sometimes that literally is the best possible thing for them, just to know in case something goes down, I'm covered. And sometimes even just that reassurance is enough to prevent whatever kind of big blow up there would have been otherwise. So yeah, having the option for some solitude. I'm a big believer in that. Some agency. Also though, trip sitters, just their understanding, their preparedness. Again, I got a little bit of a checklist I'll show you later, but this is big, obviously. I mean, there's not really much more I need to say about this, but just being stable, having planned ahead. This isn't something they just like they're just stopping by for a quick trip sit or anything like that. Like these are potentially big experiences, so having them in a good state of readiness, I think is really important. And then building some trust. We'll talk about this more later too. Facilitators. Okay, so this is going a little bit further than just trip sitting, right? Typically, these are the folks, they're giving you the medicine. Maybe it's a ceremony. Maybe there's a whole process around the administration of the psychedelics. Maybe there's some ritual. Maybe there's there's certain steps you take in the way you commune together, and maybe there's even very specific directions like do's and don'ts, rules sometimes. The Santo Daime Ayahuasca practices are famously very, very strict. You're not even allowed to move. Like, you have to stay sitting in the same spot the whole time. And amongst, many other, being loud or otherwise disturbing other people could be against the rules. There's a major power dynamic here. You're kind of the student, they're the teacher.